all different periods of life, right? At different relationships, different whatever. Some of you are parents, some of you are not, some of you are grandparents, some of you are single parents, some of you are not married, some of you are divorced, the widow. Like, we have the gamut, right? And so we said in this series, no matter where you're at, be listening for something that you can learn from in this series, right? That there will be something that's like, oh yeah, wow, I didn't think about that or that way. We're really focusing today on parenting. And I would say grandparents in the house, you still have influence in the lives of your grandkids and your kids' lives. And so I would be listening, pretty intently as well. Nikki and I are going to teach a little bit together, some just key kind of ideas about parenting. And then Grayson, Nat, and Luke, the Broughton boys, will be up here, and they're going to be teaching you, okay? And it's going to be like a conversation we have at our kitchen table, because that's what we had last week. It was a conversation around the table, and we asked them, what do you want to teach them? So this isn't us telling them what to say. This is them saying, this is what I want to tell them. So that this isn't like, Tim and Nikki must have scripted this for these boys. And no, we didn't. And so whatever comes out of their mouth, let's have fun, all right? Because we're the parents. So we told them, you can say whatever you want. There might be discipline after. So that's totally a joke.
Sort of.
So let's hop into this. Okay, let's talk about parenting. I want to start with a passage, and it's Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians 4, 5, and 6, there's a lot of practical, relational stuff. It's about church relationships, and then we have been talking about the role of a husband, the role of a wife, right? We talked about the roles, and that goes through Ephesians 5, and now in Ephesians 6, it moves to the parents. It talks to the process of raising kids. Now, as we talk this morning, I know some of you, your kids are older. Some of you, your kids are adults. And as we talk, we don't want you to feel guilty, all right? We don't want you to feel like, shoot, I messed up my kids, or I didn't do it right or didn't do that right, okay? Don't think like that. That's not how our spirit is. That's not really how we operate. Here at New Hope, we want us to all go from where we're at to wherever God wants us to go next. Does that make sense? Yes? Can I get an amen on that? Okay. All right. So let's start with a passage, Ephesians chapter 6, and you can read along with me. Starting in verse 1, this is what it says. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." So now we're talking to the kids. You thought this was parenting. Kids, if you're a kid in the room, listen carefully. Verse 2, "Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth." I love that verse. It's like, kids, listen to your parents or they will take you out, right? That's Tim's loose translation, right? It's like, I brought you into this world, I can take you out of this world. But you go back to the Ten Commandments. That's what they're quoting in this passage. Back to the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are all about teaching how to live with God and relate with Him, and how to live with each other and relate with each other. That's what the Ten Commandments are. And so in it, this one with parenting is the first one with a promise. Like, listen, obey your parents so that it will go well for you, right? So that you can enjoy a long life. Your parents aren't there trying to destroy your life. They're trying to create boundaries, help you succeed in life. That should be the goal, okay? So then it says in verse 4, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." So right away, he says, don't exasperate fathers, right? Don't do this. Sometimes fathers can be a little rough, right? It's like patience can go away like that with kids, and the fuse goes, bah, and like it can turn into a fear-driven relationship. And that's not what he's saying. It's like, fathers, don't just discipline all the time, and just don't be angry all the time, and just don't be grumpy. Like, that isn't doing the goal here of parenting. He says, instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Last week we talked about husbands. It's your job to lead your family with that spiritual authority that we see that comes from God, Jesus, the church, spiritual leaders, then fathers and husbands, spiritual leaders of the home. Like, that's a part of the order that God put into place. And so husbands, that's your call up, right? Fathers, that's your call up to love and to bring them up. Another passage is Proverbs 1:8. There's a lot of wisdom in Proverbs. That's what it is. It's the book of wisdom. It says this. It says, "Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching." It's a word of wisdom to kids. Like, listen, pay attention, right? Don't forsake your mother's teaching. In these two verses, And again, we're not going deep into teaching. We're going to let the boys teach the majority of this morning. We just wanted to help you understand the goal of parenting. So if you're taking notes, your first fill in the blank is the goal of parenting is disciple making, okay? The goal of parenting is disciple making. You're not, well, I'll let Nikki talk about that in just a minute. Our desire is not to help them be like me, it's help them be like Christ. That's the goal, right? It's to help them grow, to be independent, to think for themselves, to make wise choices, and to think like Christ. We'll get to the definition at the very end of our part of the talk. But that's our desire in parenting, is disciple making. This is your best and most influential opportunity to make a Christ follower. There's no other relationship from a parent to a child, except for a husband and wife, that you get the opportunity to directly influence somebody's life like that, right? Like pour in, and invest. So with these verses, here's two sentences, and you can fill in the blank on this. Number one, if it says, listen to your father's instruction, don't forsake your mother's teaching. Number one is that dad is in the position of greatest responsibility, okay? That whole spiritual leadership thing of the home. The dad has the greatest responsibility to do that, to raise his family up and to teach them the ways of Christ and to teach them God's word. And now I hand it to Nikki because
I'm the mom.
You're the mom.
Because I'm the mom. So then the next fill in the blank would be, and the mom is in the position of the greatest influence. So the dad is in the position of the greatest responsibility because he is the leader of the home. But the mom is in the position of the greatest influence because typically she's the one that spends the most time with the kids. So the mom is with the kids normally more than the man, not always, but in a lot of cases. So she is in the position of the greatest influence. And as Tim mentioned before, this is our responsibility because the parent's goal is to bring them up. Is there a verse about that? Bring them up in the way yeah. Proverbs 22:6. I know it's a verse that's going to come up here in just a minute. Proverbs 22:6 says, start children off in the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not depart from it. That it is, in the Bible talks about that bring up a child in the way they should go. Start off with a child the way that they should go. In another translation, it says bring them up. That children do not bring up themselves. It is our job as parents to bring them up. And it's to bring them up to nurture them to maturity. Children do not automatically grow up to be what God wants them to be. They cannot bring themselves up. If you think about a baby that's in a crib and saying, good luck, I hope it all goes well for you, and you walk away, that child will never grow up to be independent. That child will never grow up to know how to do anything because nobody trained them, no one taught them. And it is our job as parents, in the biblical world, is our job as parents to be that person that trains them and teaches them as children are growing up, as they are raising to maturity. Another fill in the blank here is parent-directed versus child-centered home. Again, we are going to be having our boys talk a lot about this in a minute. And actually next week, we're going to be having the continuation of this message. And we're going to be talking even more about what is on this screen right now about this parent-directed versus child-centered home. Now, one thing that's a quote that Tim and I laugh at because I guess we laugh at because we think it's true. But the quote is this: a lot of people want to have kids, but they don't want to be a parent. I think I heard a lot of amens in that statement. A lot of people want to have kids, but they don't want to be a parent. And this is what parent-directed versus child-centered home is about. A parent-directed home is a home where the parents are parents. A child-centered home is a home where the parents wanted to have kids, but they didn't want to be a parent. In a parent-directed home, it is the parents that set the tone for the home. It's the parents that know that God has put me as a position of authority in your life, and so it is our responsibility to set the rules and set the boundaries from our home, and we are going to have expectations of how we are going to behave in our home. And we set the guidelines and the boundaries of how we are going to allow the kids in our home to behave and what they're going to be doing because of the fact that we are training them for their future in mind. A parent-directed home is always training for the future, always, always training for the future. And a child-centered home is more that the kids are the ones that set the tone. The kids are the one that set the pace of the home. If the kid wants it, we do it. Child-centered homes are not as focused towards always training for the future. They are pleasing for the now. So a child-centered home is pleasing for the now. A parent-directed home is training for the future. So a question you would ask with that is, if you are a parent in this room, who is leading your household? Are you leading your household, or are your children leading the household? Because in Proverbs 22:6, the verse that I just said, start children off in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not turn from it. And then in Proverbs 22:15, it says, folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline will drive it far away. Now, we're not talking about beating a child in this verse, okay? That's not what this verse is even talking about either. But it says that folly is bound up in the heart of a child. A child is not mature. So you can't expect a child to make decisions based off what is best for their future. The parents have to train the children to make decisions what's based off of the future. A child is not wise and have all this vast amount of knowledge as they are growing up. It's the parents' job to train them in that. And so that's what this verse is saying, is that children don't know. They just haven't experienced that yet. And so don't expect them to make wise choices, but the rod of discipline will drive it far away. But a parent-directed home will help the children to gain wisdom. And sometimes discipline does come into that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But it's basically saying children do not know how to do this, and so it is the parent's job to train their children in this. Biblical parenting is goal-oriented. As I just mentioned before, you're always training for the future in mind. And when you do discipline your children, always be thinking about the future. And this will help you to remember the why you are disciplining. Disciplining a child when they have intentionally sinned, when you have boundaries and rules in your home, and they intentionally break those rules, then discipline comes in to train the child in the way they should go. As we said, children not bring themselves up, we bring the children up. You train them in the way they should go, and in that there is discipline. But if you always remember that, although discipline is hard because it's not fun when you have to discipline your children, positive reinforcement, I say if you give really great positive reinforcement, then you only need to do that like 80% of the time. Good job. I love what you just did. Go get them. You did awesome. I love the way you thought that through. I love the way that you worked hard on that. I love the way that you made a wise choice. Good job with that. If you always are telling your kid when they are doing the thing that you're asking them to do, good job, that was awesome, then 80% of what's in your home is only going to need to be positive reinforcement. However, you are still going to need to discipline your children, especially when they're younger. And if you do it right when they're young, you will not have to do it the rest of the time that they grow up, because you've already established and set the rules of your home. So if you remember that when you do discipline, which is not the fun part of parenting, that you're doing it always with the future in mind, it will help you to remember that this is important. You need to do it. Don't raise your kids to be like us or anyone else. This is my last point here. Don't try to raise your kids to be like us or anyone else. You raise your kids to be like Christ. Our goal for our 3 boys is not that they grow up to be just like Tim, just like me, just like you mainly, because, you know, the man at home, we have all boys. Our goal is not to raise them to be like us. Our goal is to raise them to be like Christ. And when you keep that as the future in mind as you raise your children, it will really help you to know what boundaries and rules you need to set in your home.
Yeah, so we're going to talk more about that next week, because that is a big one. That's, I would say today, the parent-directed versus child-centered home thing is probably the biggest tension in child rearing in today's culture, right? That I'll stop there. Okay, we'll talk about it next week. Last point, if you want to fill in the blank on this last one, okay, this is a long one, but this is the goal, right? The goal of biblical parenting is to prepare our children to leave the home nest and fly successfully for themselves by thinking and acting biblically regarding life and the issues of life. Your role as a parent is to help them be a Christ-following adult, right? That's the goal. Because if that's where their trajectory is, they already have wisdom. If that's the trajectory, they already can make wise choices. And we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to continue to make the guardrails tighter and tighter and tighter. They actually get wider and wider and wider, right? Because the trust is in place. And that's a part of that relationship, right? We've talked about love, trust, and free will. It's the same thing in parenting. We give it to each other, parents to kids. I love them, I trust them, and they have free will. We want them to be who they are. And all three of our boys are different. You're going to see. They're all very different. The discipline part comes is when that trust gets broken, right? Is when lying comes in. That's a no-go in our household. You lie, trust is now broken. And that's like a harsh discipline one because kids know how to lie. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to teach them how to do that. Did you take that toy? No. Like, who taught them that? That's the sin nature in all of us. Like, biblically, theologically, I believe that we're not born innocent. Like, we're born into a sin nature because we live in a broken world. And for us to train them, no, I want to trust you. Lying, it breaks trust immediately, and it steals your free will is what it does. And so that's one of the big ones, like learning how to build trust in a family so that when whoever's speaking to each other, we can trust each other. And we then can love each other, and we can let each other thrive as our individuals who we are. So you guys are supposed to start walking up when I made the last point.
But you told them that you would tell them, so they were following. They were following your rule.
Thank you for obeying my words. All right, so
you're fine.
Here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to transition. We're going to let them introduce themselves. What's that?
They need the car.
Yes, the life card that we've been playing with through this whole series. My last point was this. If you don't teach your children, someone else will. There's plenty of things out there that'll teach your kids. We were at a hotel last night, and I woke up and went down to eat breakfast. And it's interesting because I people watch. And so I'm just sitting there by myself people watching, and I see a family, young kid, and the first thing to do, get her in the seat, hand her a screen, and then go do their thing. I'm like, you've decided what's going to teach your kids and how they're going to be taught, right? Like everything we do, we are teaching our kids something or somebody else is teaching them. It's our job to teach, right? And to raise them up and to disciple them. And so we are so proud of these three boys on how they're growing up and the choices that they've been making. They're not perfect kids. Just so you know, like preacher's kids, sometimes like preacher's kids, they're like under the magnifying glass, and we've always told them, you're our kids before you're ever preacher kids. So you just be you, right? If you mess up, welcome to the family, right? Like that's all of us, you know? So we're going to have you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll just have our conversation like we did around the kitchen table.
So Grayson's the one that made this car with his 3D printer. So again, we've been using this car through the whole illustration. So here's Pastor Tim. Here's me, and now we're going to fill up our car here.
All right, this one's me.
I'll hold it. Oh, wait, you got to introduce yourself. Tell a little bit about yourself.
All right. Hi, I'm Grayson. I just turned 18. Thank you.
On Friday. He just turned 18 on Friday, so 18 in 2 days.
I like engineering and video games and other nerdy stuff like that. So that's me.
I'm Luke. I guess I'm in the back of the car because I'm the youngest. I'm 13, and I like music and cars.
Alrighty, and I'm Nat, and I'm 16, and I really like music and drumming, and I'm a really huge Star Wars nerd, so yes.
You hold it. All right.
Okay, so we've got some questions for you guys.
On the other side.
What's that? Oh, it's on this one. You can see we're all ready.
So basically, I'll start, and then you can start to ask the first question.
Yeah.
So how this whole started is we knew that we were going to be doing a family life series months and months ago. And we were thinking about how best to teach our church about the role of a family, all the different roles that are in a family. And we knew that the parenting role was going to come up. And so I asked Pastor Tim, and then we said to the teaching team, what would you think about having kids on stage and the kids talk to the parents? And they all said, I think that's a really great idea. And we're like, all right, let's see if we can make this happen. So then Pastor Tim and I came home and we asked our boys. We told them the whole, we're doing this kind of series. It's going to be months from now, but we're going to talk about this. And what do you guys think about telling parents what you want in a parent and what you need in a parent? And all three of their eyes got really big, and I knew, this is going to happen. Like, they're excited about this. We're going to make this happen. Not you, maybe?
Not entirely.
Not entirely, he said, not entirely. These two were maybe more excited about this one. So anyways, so what we did then, we sat down at the kitchen table, and we said, what do you think parents need to know? And they just had a conversation, and I wrote all these notes down of what they think. And so basically, all the questions that we're going to be asking them now are based off of what they told us that they wanted to talk about to all of you. So Pastor Tim and I are going to go back and forth asking questions that they're the ones that came up with, and they're just going to go down the line and answer these questions for you.
All right, Grayson, question number 1. I feel like it's a game show. No, so you heard us talk, and we've talked about parent-directed versus child-centered home. What are your guys' thoughts on the difference between those things?
Okay, so parent-directed home, I think, is much better because in a child-centered home, that kid is probably going to end up feeling a bit spoiled because parents are always paying attention to them, always giving them everything they want. That's not great. They're not going to know how to accept rejection then whenever they get into the real world, and rejection happens a lot. You're not just given everything you want. You got to work for it most of the time. So parent-directed home, much better because the parents are teaching the kid difference between right and wrong. They're not giving them everything they want. The kid has to work for it in some way, and also they will learn good behavior by doing that at the same time.
Good. All right, what do you think, Luke? Good job.
I think that, in a child-centered home, you're giving the child what they want, and in a parent-directed home, you're giving the child what they need. I feel like the parent should definitely say no sometimes, because parents that always say yes are just, like Grayson said, they're not going to grow up very well. They're not going to learn to know rejection or anything. They got to know that that sometimes the answer will be no.
Yeah, and building upon that, so saying no for kids or whatever, like, it kind of sets up boundaries for them. Because what I see a lot is, like, parents would always say yes to them, whatever, and so the kids would act like a certain way or whatever, and then the parents would get annoyed with them or something and be like, yeah, sure, whatever, you can have this, you can have that, you can act in this way. And so as a kid, you're saying that, okay, if I do this, I can do what I want to do. And it sets up a habit, and that habit will continue to grow because, if I act a certain way, I can get what I want. I don't see a problem with it. And so it's kind of creating a lack of boundaries for them, and so it's just going to let them get away with what we want to do as a kid. And so in a parent-driven home, you're going to be saying that, no, you can't do this, and also explain here's why you can't do it. Because, I feel like if you're just going to say, no, you can't do this, you can't have this, whatever, it's going to be the kid just, crying or whatever, because he's not going to get what he or she is wanting. And so I feel like a big part of that is explaining the reason why.
These are smart kids, aren't they? I'm hoping the parents are listening because everything you guys said was awesome, right on. That's the power. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this. Are you guys okay with us saying no, and why?
Yes, because I know the things I want aren't always right, especially since you guys have taught us that by saying no to some things. Now I know that eating an entire bowl full of candy might be bad. I couldn't do that. Now I know.
Hashtag wisdom. All right. Have there been things that we've said yes to you that you had to learn from?
Probably. whenever you say no, it gives us, like, we know that the answer for that will always be no. So if we ask it again, we just know the answer is going to be no. And that will help us relate it to other things further on in our life.
What if you came to me and asked a question and I said no? Do you guys ever then go to Dad to see if you can get a yes?
This is called manipulation.
How did that go for you?
The answer never changed.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Nat.
It did for me sometimes.
Oh.
I mean, like, because, like, whenever I mow and stuff, if I go to Dad, like, after I'm done and ask him if I could get a little money or something, it's always a no consistently. And if I go to my mom, it's a yes, and she'll give me $10.
So he's learned who to ask first is the story there.
I'm like, if only Dad is home, I'm going to wait until Mom gets home. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, and so that's a minor issue, right? That's just cash flow. We get it. Kid wanting cash. But there's been times, I remember times where one of you had tried to do that, have went to Mom and got a no, and then came to me and said, hey, Dad, I was thinking about, how did that go?
Not well.
Not well, right? And the boundary got set, right? And discipline came into play to help you learn. Like, we parent together, right? That's parent directed. It's not just one person and then an argument. We parent together. But yeah. Okay, next question.
So my next question is about discipline. So, you know, although you guys are absolutely amazing, never done anything wrong, you know,
Angels.
perfect angels and stuff. So what do you guys think about discipline? What do you think parents in the room need to know about that?
Okay, so discipline when your kid is young is a very important thing because it teaches them that what they did is wrong, but you can't just stop at discipline like say spankings. So people have mixed feelings about spankings. And I think the reason why is if you just spank a kid after they did something wrong and that's it, that kid is just going to be in pain and not understand why they just got spanked. You have to explain to them what they did that was wrong and why it was wrong, and you have to teach them what they should do next time. Otherwise, nothing's going to change. But discipline is important because it is what teaches them to make the change. Like, hey, if this causes pain, if my parents get angry when I do this, obviously I should not do it. It teaches them not to do it next time. Also, not just like spankings, also you could take stuff away from them, like, hey, you're grounded. You can't do this anymore because of what you did. And the kid will learn then that, hey, okay, I won't do that next time. Because even though in real life, when we do something wrong, we won't get spanked or something is taken away from us like that, like we can't watch TV anymore, there will be a consequence for that action. And discipline at an early age teaches that there are consequences. That is very important.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, that discipline at an early age is good and healthy. I remember whenever you pulled us aside, you would always take us and you would say, what did you do, what was it right, and what should you have done? And then that would, like, if you just go and spank your kid, they're just going to be like, ow, pain, and then nothing is learned. But whenever you actually talk to them, say, this is what you did, this was wrong, now this is what you should have done. So that way, in the future, they know exactly what they should do in that situation, and so they won't do what's wrong.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. But and also, like, a very important thing is discipline is done out of love. It's not done out of spite, out of anger, out of any of those things. I would say if that's what the motive is coming from, to spank your kids or just whatever, that's not okay. Because discipline is set in place so that your kid can have his or her best future in mind. It's so we can cut out those bad actions or whatever that your kid is doing, and so that doesn't implement what happens in their life and that in school and all this stuff. It's like, okay, this is not okay, and here's why it's going to happen, and know that I love you and that this is why I'm doing it. It's not out of anything else. So, like, whenever mom and dad would, like, I don't know, spank us or ground us, whatever, it's like, I'm doing this because I love you more than anything else. And so I feel like that is a very important thing to, keep in mind as thinking about discipline, because lots of people have very bad thoughts about discipline. It's like, no, that's not okay. I don't want to hurt my child or anything. I don't want to make him feel uncomfortable. I'll just let him keep on doing what he wants to do. And in the end, that's not actually the best thing for your kid, because they need to learn and mature as they grow up and get older.
So, I know the moment they started this conversation, we said, you guys just talk. And I know this, what was just talked about, for some of you is like, what did they say? Did he just say spanking? Because it's a controversial topic in today's world, right? Like, because there are people who abuse children, and that's wrong, and that's sinful, and should never happen.
Yes.
Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Right? That is not what we were talking about at all, okay? I grew up getting spanked. I should have been spanked more. Like, I was like a hyper kid, and I needed boundaries when I was younger that I wasn't given. And I wish I would have had more discipline as a kid, because it would have solved a lot more problems as an adult for me to understand boundaries and those kind of things. And so when we talk about this, I told him, guys, some people don't agree with this, and they think it always leads to anger, and kids, like, they don't get it. And I'm like, our kids are healthy, like, mature young men. They're not abused. They're not, like, right? I don't know. Maybe I should ask that question. And so I know that this topic, it can be a hot one. Now, for us, that was our choice, okay? That was our choice in our household. You choose what discipline is in your household, right? But the key is, whatever discipline is, you stay consistent. You set the boundaries. Kids want consistency. They want to know, if I do this, this is the end result. If you're a parent who's just sporadic on discipline, they're going to have no idea or have any security in their home. Because they're going to be like, one time I got, like, discipline for it, the other time I got away with it. Like, what is the boundary, right? So you're creating confusion for your child by creating inconsistent discipline. Like, if you lie, here's what's always going to happen. Just, you need to know. So they know when they come lie and they try to talk their way out of that lie, it's like, no, remember, lying is wrong in our household. Here's what we said would happen if you do that. And you stay consistent, right? Is everybody with me? So I when it comes to this part of the conversation, I don't email me, is what I'm saying. Because honestly, I don't. If you're abusing your child, if you discipline out of anger, you're sinning. You're the one that'll be disciplined by God because of your anger and your sin issue. That's on you, parent. You will be raising an angry kid because they're learning your angry ways, okay? If you are too hot and crazy at that moment, you stop and you walk away and say, I'll be back, you stay here. And you calm yourself down. And then you go back and you lovingly say, okay, let's talk about this. What did you do wrong? And let them say, you don't tell them what they did wrong. You ask them first. Because if they don't know what they did wrong, now you tell them what they did wrong, right? Because most likely they knew they lied. Most likely they knew they took that toy from. Most likely, you know what I'm saying? And then you correct them and say, well, then what should have you done? What do you think Christ would have done? That's a question that we ask because we're discipling our kids. What do you think Jesus would have done? And then in that, you're training them. And then say, well, here is the consequences for that. When you don't teach your kid consequences for sin, they will live their life as if there are no consequences for sin. And that's not true. Every sin breaks relationship with God. Every sin breaks relationship with somebody you sin against. You teach that lesson young, they'll be wise when they're old. Okay? So, I'm proud of you boys. Thank you for sharing that and being honest. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay.
You're next.
I'm next. Okay. What is the hardest thing that you have gone through in life so far? Grayson.
Okay, so pretty sure this is the part where they said I should talk about my autism for a bit. So, yes, I am autistic, and that has been interesting throughout my life because it means that basically I'm just kind of a bit different from everybody else. So that started pretty early on. I was a weird kid. I'll say it. Because it's true. I was strange. And fortunately, they noticed that, and they sought to get help from me. They sought to understand me, and that helped me. Look at me now. I'm a full-fledged, weird young adult. Okay, but in all honesty, it has helped me that they've tried to understand. They went to get a diagnosis for me for autism. I was kind of young, so I didn't understand what we were doing. I just thought it was some doctor's appointment or something. But when they found out that I was autistic, they immediately searched everywhere to get answers online, books, just people, anything that would help them learn more about it. And they also talked to me a lot, so they could understand what was going through my mind, what I was feeling, what my thoughts were on different things, so they could understand me and what I was going through, and that helped me a lot. So basically what I'm trying to say here is, if your kid seems different in some way, or even not, if you just have a normal kid, I guess, you should try to understand them, talk to them, make sure you understand what's going through their head, what they're feeling, what they're thinking about, because they will feel much better knowing that they are understood.
I think the hardest thing I've gone through would be anxiety. Starting in like late 5th grade till last summer, I guess, I really struggled with anxiety. Well, there wasn't really like a direct cause for it. It just kind of like randomly started. And through all of it, you two always like tried to help me out. You would always like ask me questions, ask me what's wrong. And you were the ones who figured out that I had anxiety. So it always helps just for the parents to know, this is what you're struggling with, how can we help? That's what helped me out a lot. And I don't know, it was like late summer of last summer, I guess. I just almost completely stopped struggling with anxiety. Like, sometimes it'll take another swing at me, but most of the time, it's totally fine. And it's because, well, I know God helped me a lot, and you two helped me a lot.
So I was kind of the bubble child of the household. Like, I always would end up getting injured and stuff like that. So let's say I broke in multiple bones, and I've sprained many a finger. And so in 5th grade, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And that was a big process, whatever. I was in the hospital for like 5 days or something. And like, I don't know, I just kept on having medical stuff go on with me. And I just felt really awful during that phase. And just like, I don't know, I just couldn't do anything, and I was always sick. And I went on to medications and stuff to try to help, and I would always get all the side effects for every medication that I was on, like all of the side effects. So I was losing my hair, and I wasn't eating, and I couldn't control my emotions and stuff. And then in 6th grade, when I'm going through all the medications and stuff, I got type 1 diabetes on top of that. And yeah, that wasn't fun at all. To put that lightly, I guess. You know, I was a 12-year-old boy who just had all of these different things, and I couldn't feel normal, and it felt like I was just really difficult for everybody. And you know, throughout all of this, Mom and Dad were just there with me and trying to help me just get through all of it, because, you know, like, why would a 6th grader have to go through all of this different stuff? And they just felt really bad for me, and would always try to understand what's going on. Because, I mean, you know, as they've been saying, understanding is a really big part of being a parent, and just to hear their side of the story and stuff. And lots of prayers went on, lots of stuff all the time. And cut to 7th grade, I went to a doctor's appointment, and the doctors were super confused and didn't know what to say, because there were no traces of Crohn's disease in my body anymore. So that was just a big moment, because I was struggling with trusting in God and stuff, and I just to see that He can do that. I mean, God is a miracle worker, and he still does miracles and stuff. And, there's no signs of it in my body anymore. The doctors were so confused as they walked in. They're like, there's no medical evidence to back up why it's not here anymore. I'm like, it's God. It's nothing else. It's God. And I still have type 1 diabetes. I'm okay with that. This is something that I live with. I give myself 5 shots a day. For me, I know it sounds like intense, but for me, it's not a big deal or anything because I just am used to it at this point because, it's my body. I have to take care of it. So, but, that's been really rough in my life, but I've been able to persevere through it, through my parents and through that love and through trusting in God.
This is where I tear up. I guess I want you all to know that just because we're a pastor's family and just because we've devoted our life to full-time ministry does not mean that we have gotten a get-out-of-jail-free card in life. That our oldest son has autism, and we think he's awesome, and we're so proud of him and the things that he does in his life. Luke has really, really struggled with anxiety, and he's learned and trained himself how to take his thoughts captive and how to calm himself down. And Nat has spent a lot of time in doctor's appointments, way more time than you should think of. He's now 16. Since he was 12 years old. I mean, he goes to doctor's appointments all the time. We've spent a lot of time at Akron Children's Hospital with Nat. Over the years, that we did not get a get-out-of-jail-free card and stuff because of the fact that we are in full-time ministry. That's not the way that it works. We live in a sinful, broken world, and that's going to affect every family. It's going to affect everyone, but it doesn't make God less good. It does not make God less good, and these boys are going to go through things in life. And they're going to go through hard things in life, and we try to shelter them from those hard things when they are kids. They're not going to know how to go through hard things in life when they get to be adults. And that these guys have gone through things knowing that God is on their team and we are on their team, and we're going to support them. It has helped them to know how to handle when things come up in life, right? Yeah, good stuff.
So the other thing that happens is when other people complain about a toenail hurting, we roll our eyes. And we pray for them, right? Right? Life is hard. And if the more God entrusts you to deal with and go through, the more he wants to do with you and through those things. And that's why I believe he's allowed our family and trusted us to walk through all these different things we've had to go through. And so I'm proud of these boys. Yeah.
Okay, next question. This is something that we didn't have to deal with when we were kids because I didn't have my first cell phone until I was 25 years old because they just didn't exist back then when we were kids. But this really is a huge thing in our culture now. Again, our boys are the ones that chose everything that we're talking about here this morning. So my first part of this question is to talk about phones.
Okay, so obviously phones very prevalent now. Basically everybody has a smartphone at this point. The thing is, there is a lot you can do on a smartphone you can't do on just a regular phone, because it's not just a phone. You don't just call people or text people with it. You can do anything on this phone, meaning you can find anything on this phone. And for that reason, kids probably should not have a phone, because unless you've talked to them and had an in-depth conversation with them about everything they might see on this phone so they understand the dangers that come with it, they shouldn't have it, because that means they are learning stuff from this phone that you never taught them, and learning from a phone is not smart, not something you want to do. So we actually weren't allowed to have phones until we were 16. I didn't get mine until I was able to drive, because they were worried about me driving and getting a crash or something, I guess. It hasn't happened. I haven't had to use the phone for anything like that. But yeah, basically, just don't give them a phone until they're old enough to understand what it is. the power that they have with it and how to properly use it responsibly.
Yeah, I agree with what you were saying. I think another thing is like, um, so like in parent directed, you're giving your child what you need until you're like driving. Your child is driving. There's no really need for a phone. Phones can be dangerous things, and if you tell your child like don't go to these dangerous places, that you can trust your child that they won't find it, but it will find your child. So yeah, phones can be like dangerous things. I'm not 16 yet, so I don't have a real phone. And on our phones, we can't like look anything up. Our dad blocked like whatever the apps are that you can search things and go onto Google. We can't have that. We just have we have like messages and stuff, and that's pretty much it. Just a couple of games, and it's like on iPhones at least. There's ways to secure everything and make sure that your child's not going to anything dangerous, which is good. So set up that. Just to keep your child safe, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's all I got.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I feel like I don't see a point of kids having a phone in the first place. I mean, what good are they gonna do? I guess. I mean, like I see lots of kids they're just glued to a screen, like iPad, like the iPad kid or whatever. Like, we all see those kids or whatever, and you know, I just don't really know the point of why you'd have an iPhone, or a phone. That's just what I have, but, so I don't have Google or anything on my phone. I'm not on it too often, and I just don't see very much productivity coming out of being on my phone, looking at it all the time. Like, I see all these high schoolers and stuff. They're like, yeah, I have like 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day on my phone. I'm like, what the heck are you doing on your phone? Like, social media and stuff isn't that good for you. I see so many people just like looking, it's like, oh, I'm so jealous. They're at the beach. I'm so jealous. They have this outfit, whatever. It's like, what good is coming out of that, I guess? I mean, yeah, there's some funny things you can see, but I'd say use that in regulation and have some self-control over, I don't need to look at my phone for 8 hours a day, you know? And I would say, yes, we have guardrails with it. Like, I usually have it so, like, I think we can have it so you only are on your phone a certain amount of hours a day, and I see no problems with having that implemented. It's just, we've let phones and stuff become the center of our attention, and we've created habits, and that habit has become an addiction, and then we see these kids that are growing up in a generation where everybody's on their phone instead of being relational with the people around them. And that's not okay. And so as a parent, I would say something very important is, as a parent, your area of control is you, but it's also your kids. And I think you should be able to say no to certain things. And having a phone is a very big thing, and you have to kind of decide what's that going to look like, what that's going to look like for your child.
Can I just say once again that we did not tell our boys what to say? Everything that's coming out of them is what they wanted to say. What's coming out of them. Okay, what about social media, Grayson?
Social media, yeah, that's a big one, isn't it?
How many social media accounts do you have, or are you on?
None, because I don't want it. So social media is a neutral thing. I'm not just gonna say, oh, yep, evil. It's from Satan himself. Can't be on social media ever. It's a neutral thing, like everything else. You can do good with it. You can do bad with it. I'd say I have seen. It seems like there is a lot more bad on social media, though, than there is good. Obviously, you can be on it. There is some good stuff you can do on social media. You can, like, talk with friends and stuff, share stuff with them. That's all fine. But there's also a lot of dangerous and negative stuff on social media that nobody really needs to see. let alone, like Nat said, spend hours on just looking at. So, you can be on social media if you want. I'm not sure if your child should be on social media, again, like I said, until they are mature enough to understand everything on it and to handle it responsibly. But I'm not going to use it. So, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I agree that social media isn't all bad, but it's a lot bad. There is good on it, but it's just the good and bad, they're all mixed in. So you're gonna see both, no matter like who you are. I don't really know what to say about this. Can I just
Okay.
pass it to Nat?
Yeah, I feel like lots of things were said. So, I think social media is a good thing in essence because, we're able, like, this generation, we have so much communication and stuff with each other, and we can get connected into different groups and see all these different things and stuff and be part of different communities without actually, like, physically being there. And that's something that, in essence, is really cool. And I don't see any problems with that. What I see problems with is people just scrolling, not being present in their everyday lives. Because, no, life is here and now. It's not in a little box, I guess. And I would say kids having social media, that goes into them, with them having phones or whatever. Me personally, I'm a really physical person. Like, I don't really like looking at screens too long or anything. I would much rather see a kid outside than just sitting in their room on their phone because, it's not healthy. Like, kids should be playing outside and be with their own kids and being with kids and having play dates and whatever, doing kid things. And I don't think it's really the most amazing thing just to see them on a social media thing where they're just exposed to all this different stuff. Yeah, memes are fun to look at and they're funny, except for I don't think it should let that rule your thoughts.
Okay, last question of this, and we're starting to run out of time a little bit, so just kind of go as quickly, but say what you feel like you want to say, okay? Dating. How many girlfriends do you have, Grayson?
None.
None. All right.
Aw.
What do you think parents need to know about dating?
Okay, so, see what I want to say here. So, dating, again, not a bad thing, obviously. Very important thing, especially when you're thinking about marriage, but that's where a lot of people get it wrong. After successfully dating someone, normally, what comes after that is marriage. You get married. That's fun, but most people don't think of it like that. A lot of people date for fun or for security, and sometimes they think, oh, I'm lonely. I don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend. I need to go find one. You don't need one. There are actually a lot of times in the Bible where it says you might be better off just staying single. Much less complicated that way, I guess. But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is until your child, you feel like they are mature enough and responsible enough to handle dating someone else, you really should not encourage it at all. You should probably tell. That's another important thing to teach your kids about dating and marriage and what to do and not do in those scenarios. So, yeah, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I feel like whether you should date or not, it shouldn't be based off of an age level thing. It should be based off of a maturity level thing. You shouldn't. Parents should never tell your child, "Oh, you need to go get a date," because in reality you don't. It's like Grayson was saying, the end goal of dating is marriage, and if your child is still living with you, they're probably not gonna get married anytime soon, so they shouldn't really be able to date anytime soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I see lots of different things where it's like parents are encouraging two kids or whatever, like date each other and stuff like that. And I honestly think it's kind of funny because, I mean, what are they going to do in the first place, I guess? That's my main thought. It's like they're like 6. Like, what are you expecting to happen? I guess I don't see why a relationship should be going on in elementary school and in junior high and stuff like that. I mean, like, I guess junior high is more kind of like hormone things, honestly. It's just like, hey, you're a girl, and that's pretty attractive. It's like, I don't know. Like, that's like, I see that kind of stuff happen. I just think it's kind of funny, but it's not really necessary to be dating at these young ages because it's more about, for people that are doing it, it's more about security and attractiveness and, like, I don't know, you're fun to be around, you're a funny guy, whatever. It's not keeping Christ at the center. And a big thing about dating, at least as a Christian, is God should be at the center of the relationship before anything else. And so, like going into a relationship, my thought should be, is this relationship going to honor God? And so, I don't really, like in high school, I'm probably not going to date, and I'm okay with that because I don't really see that many motives that are good or whatever, where it's like, yeah, my end goal when dating is marriage. It's more like, no, I just want to hang out with somebody because they're fun or because they're attractive or something like that. And so I would say parents, if you're like, honestly, it's not, your kids should not be dating in like elementary school and junior high. I just don't see it. I feel like more is going to be drama than anything else. That's just my personal thought. But in high school, I would say keep into your kids' relationships with, like, romantical stuff or whatever. Like, ask some questions about it to see where they're at. And I know that was kind of uncomfortable for them, but it kind of pushes you to know exactly where they're at, and it kind of helps them reflect on their relationship as well. And what are they personally seeking out of this relationship? So I think that's what I got to say on that.
I just want to say real fast that Nat here has actually broken a couple hearts this school year of girls that have really wanted to date him. I know your
He's
face
like,
is so
stop talking,
red.
Mom. Stop talking.
But I think it's important
Mom.
for people to hear this, that I'm sorry, Nat, but it's important, I think, for people to hear that there's been girls that have really wanted to date Nat and have really not understood where his stance is on this. And he's like, she's so fun, she's so smart, I really love hanging out with her, but she doesn't know Jesus as her Savior. So I can't date her. And he's had to tell girls why he's not going to be dating them. You just don't share my faith, but I love hanging out with you. And that's been hard. It's been really hard for Nat to learn that, and to grow, to not for you to learn it, but to have those conversations, because you didn't want to hurt the girl because she's really sweet. But when you teach your kids that from a young age that the reason to date is to find your future mate, and you teach your kids that you want your future mate to somebody who's all about Jesus, then that's what they're going to be looking for as they get older. That's the desire. Anyways, yeah. All right, next question. I won't put...
Nat's like, don't
Mom,
stop talking, Mom. Stop.
Just stop, Mom.
Stop right now. So let's go deeper into your dating relationship, shall we? But you guys hear the heartbeat there. I want to go back to the phone thing so you guys know. The whole phone, online, internet thing. If you don't filter your kids' stuff, it doesn't matter. Evil is hunting them down, okay? Like, I'm telling you, porn use on phones is like through the roof. And if you go to the high school, how often do you look at pornography? I forget it's like, I don't know how many hours a day. It's like, what are you doing? You're programming your brain, and it's because they have access 24/7. I didn't have that as a 16-year-old. You think about hormonal boys with full access to whatever they want to look at. And the thing is, it's not just boys. It's boys and girls, and they're being trained. And so I'm going to just talk to the parents real quick. Cut it out. Stop letting evil into your home and into your kid's life. It's your job to filter. It's your job to shut things out, okay? All right, I'm done.
And we have sensors on all of the
All
devices.
their phones. Yeah, they can't search things.
Our boys are not allowed. Our boys have no access to search things, and we have these sensor things, whatever.
Accountability.
Things that if they do search something, it sends an email to Tim, and stuff. So we know. So we are their parents. They live in our home, and we set the rules and the boundaries, and you guys respect us for that.
And
Yeah.
they thank us for it. Like, honestly, it's not like, boy, they're really strict parents. They do that. I bet they would just wish they could search things on Google. And they can. They say, okay, here's my laptop. You can search and you can do research. You can do homework. We give them the right tools to use when they need it, right? It's just not free open access 24/7 to something like that. All right. We're just going to wrap up. All right, real quick.
Okay.
What have we done in our home to help you grow spiritually? And what would you want to say to parents about that?
Okay, so it is very important to make sure your kid grows up knowing who Jesus is and what the Bible has to say about pretty much everything, really, just what the Bible says. So every night whenever we were younger, our parents, right before we went to bed, they would read some stories from the Bible to us that would help us, learn what the Bible says and what it means, and they would help us understand it so we could apply it to our lives. And then we would all pray together as a family, and then we would go to bed. And that taught us really how to pray and what a prayer is and what it means. We're talking to God. So it was very important that they taught us that, and it's important that other parents teach their kids that because, well, if your kid doesn't grow up knowing God, doesn't grow up going to church, they're not really going to care whenever they're an adult. They're going to think, oh, we just went to church on like Easter and Christmas. I'm just not going to go to church then because it's not important to me. They're not going to know how to pray when they're an adult. They're not going to read the Bible when they're an adult. They're not going to have a relationship with Jesus, basically. If you care about your kid and you want to see them in heaven, you need to teach them these things. It is probably the most important thing that we're talking about tonight is your kid's relationship with Jesus. You need to encourage that as a parent. You need to read the Bible with them. You need to pray with them. You need to take them to church, youth group even. Just help them along with their walk with Christ. They will thank you so much when they are older.
Yeah, we were forced to go to church and youth group. That sounds like a bad thing, but now that we're older, we want to come to church in a youth group. Here at church, we have like strong bonds with people, and we want to be here. We want to learn more about God, just because of that early start off with God. Just growing through that, and like I guess we're mature now because of that. And I feel like without coming to church and to youth group, even if you did everything else that you did, without that, we wouldn't be who we are today.
Yeah, I agree with that. We were, I guess, forced to go. And I'd say a big part of that is what I said earlier was, as a parent, your kids are under your area of control as well. And so, I've heard kids, whatever, it's like, I don't want to go to church, I don't want to go to youth group, whatever. But, like, as a parent, you want to see them grow up to become a strong Christian and strong in their faith or whatever. And it's like, no, you're going to go to this. It's not just because, child-centered is, okay, you don't have to go because you just want them to be happy in the here and now, not the there and later. And so, because, it'll just build up their relationship with Christ and give them a better understanding. And so if you're just taking that away from them, they're not going to be building relationships with the people there. They're going to feel like, I'm just with a bunch of people I don't know. They're not going to feel comfortable with it. And so they're not going to want to keep going. They're going to be like, nah, I'd rather stay home. If you keep on making them consistently go, they're going to get to know more people, become friends with people, build relationships, and overall build a relationship with Christ. And that is, the goal. And so I'd say thank you for doing that for us, because it's helped us to become more aware of everything there is to know about God and relationships with others. Because, we learn and grow stronger through relationships with other people and a sense of community. And yeah.
Okay, very last question is, do I have it? You have it.
I've got it.
Okay, right here. What do we do as a family that helps you to be healthy?
What kind of healthy exactly?
So I want to say that, do you think that these three boys could have had this conversation if they had been raised in a home that was child-centered? Do you see that these boys are intelligent? I mean, I don't want to say it's like I'm their mom standing up here, so this is really hard for me, they know how to process these things, that they're very hardworking. They all are. They all three get very good grades. They're all very intelligent. They're all in really high classes in school, and they're leaders. And I'm so thankful that the Lord has provided this for us. But it didn't happen on accident. Yes, God has been good to us, and God has shown this. But this, what you're seeing right here, has been hard work for the two of us. Out of all my human relationships, Tim comes first, and these boys are second, and they're all equal, and they're second. There are no favorites on this stage with the three of them. I love them to pieces, and I have been intentional with them since the day that they were born. I can honestly say I have thoroughly enjoyed every single stage I've ever gone with these boys through. I loved them when they were babies, when they were toddlers, when they were preschoolers, when they were elementary school, and junior high and high school. I have loved every stage of being these kids' mama. I just love being their mama. And we've really highly invested in them because they're our kids. And they're what God has gifted us, and we love them, and so I guess I want to say to you guys, last question, what have you seen that's helped you be healthy in our family? The time that we invest, because Dad and I aren't sitting on our phones all the time in the evenings. We're not gone all the time, not at home with you guys. We make you guys a priority, right? So how do parents in the room, how they make their kids a priority to help them to be healthy?
So basically everything that we've talked about up until now is how you get a healthy child. All the discipline, the Christianity, even the phones and dating and social media, all of that stuff is what it takes to make your kid healthy. And yeah, obviously it's hard work. You're making a person. That's what you're doing. It's not going to be easy. You're teaching them how to be a person. And life can be rough. But you need to teach them all of these things because life is rough. That's what it takes for them to make it out there. And to even help grow other people once they are ready. So yeah, all of this stuff is very important. Also, I guess, as far as physically healthy is concerned, make your kids eat their veggies. Even if they whine and complain, like I did, just I don't know, make them eat it. They don't get dessert or whatever till they do. Because, I'll tell you why, I eat a veggie with every single meal I eat now because they taught me to do that. I am definitely not healthy. I should probably work out some. But hey, I am more healthy than I would have been, so I appreciate it.
What about the fruits?
Fruits.
Yes, I eat some fruit.
Okay. So I guess some things that we did, we have family game nights and family movie nights every once in a while. Any night we eat all around the kitchen table together. It's just to make a healthy person, they have to have a healthy family. And to have a healthy family, you have to have strong bonds with everybody in your family. You have to, get together with everybody. Everybody has to know each other. So that way they all trust each other, trusting relationships. Yeah. And so that's how we're healthy, because we have a healthy family.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of that is being intentional with one another, getting that sense of how was your day and asking each other questions and stuff. Just really wondering how one another are doing and seeing where we're at and seeing what we're struggling with, or if we're struggling with anything, or like praising us for doing a good job or whatever. It's like we're all for one another. This isn't meant to be anything divisive or anything. It's all about building up our family as a whole. And so, yeah, we all fight. I mean, we're family. That's kind of what our job. But, I mean, yeah. But at the same time, we're all for one another, and that we have each other's backs. And just to see that, you know, that strengthened relationship that we've all built with one another, it's just very important. Because, I mean, you guys are the ones that taught us that we need to build our relationships with one another, and that how important that really is. And so I'll just say, make sure that your kid knows that you love them, because, you know, love God, love one another. Love is a very, very big thing. And so just making sure that love is communicated has been a very pivotal thing in my life.
All right, let's give it up for the Broughton boys.
All right, you guys can have a seat. So we're going to start traveling with the Broughton Parenting Seminar, and they're going to lead it. And I hope you heard. Sometimes us as adults need wisdom from somebody younger than us, right, to teach us and to train us. You know, here at Nope, we talk about premarital counseling. Like before you get married, you should get some counseling, right? You should get united and that kind of stuff. I think there should be some pre-parental counseling. Like before you have kids, let's help you get ready to be a parent, not just have kids. And this is a part of that process. Like these are the boundaries. And this is our heart, is to raise up a child in the way they should go, so that when they're older, they will not depart from it. And that's centered on the person of Jesus Christ. And that's our goal. That's our goal. So if you didn't hear a challenge in there, then you weren't listening. So I'm not going to give another challenge. There's lots of challenges in there, you know, for us to think about. Next week, we're going to go a little bit deeper, more practical, and some more fill in the blanks on how to do this. We're going to talk about priorities, because so often in our households, we don't actually literally set priorities. They just come to us, and we just kind of live them out. But we're going to be more intentional. Like, how can you set some awesome priorities for you personally and for your family? So we'll dig into that next week as we do that. So I'm going to pray, and then we'll wrap things up here in just a minute. So God, thank you for the wisdom that we heard today. I know it was a lot and it was long, but God, we want people to thrive and do great in their homes. And you've given us some clear ways to do that. You've taught us how to do that. And I know you can teach all of us how to do that. You can shepherd all of us as parents and grandparents. Help us to lead our kids and lead the kids. Create boundaries for them, to protect them, to love them, to build trust and free will, and help them thrive in all the things you put in these kids' lives that they're going to thrive in as they get older. You have a plan and a purpose for every single one. Thank you for entrusting us as parents to shepherd them. Help us to shepherd their hearts well. And it's in Christ's name I pray. Everybody said amen? Amen. All right, before we go, and we're going to do this